James, Leah said, smiling at me over the candles on her birthday cake, you're patient, careful, always paying attention. Does that mean you're good at the private stuff too? Everybody at the table laughed. Not mean laughter. Just that loose, loud kind that comes after 2 bottles of wine, too much pasta, and everybody feeling safe enough to say dumb things. Leah laughed too, but I saw her face change right after the words left her mouth. Her eyes flicked down to her plate, then back to me, like she already knew she had stepped somewhere she had not meant to step. I could have saved it. That was the thing. I could have smiled, made some contractor joke about measuring twice and cutting once, and everyone would have laughed harder. The whole thing would have passed in 10 seconds. But I didn't. I just sat there with my fork in my hand, staring at the little flame on the candle in front of her, and before I could stop myself, I said, I wouldn't know anymore. I stopped letting myself be good at anything that needed another person. The table went quiet so fast it felt like somebody had shut a door. Leah's friend Morgan had her glass halfway to her mouth. Her brother, Sam, stopped chewing. The waiter walked past behind me with a tray of plates and even that sound felt too loud. Leah looked at me, and the smile was gone now. Not because she was mad. That would have been easier. She looked worried. She looked like she had seen something fall out of my pocket that I had been carrying around for years. I pushed my chair back. James, she said softly. I'm good, I told her. That was my favorite lie. I had used it so much people in town stopped checking if it was true. I stood up, set my napkin on the table, and nodded at the others. Happy birthday, Leah. I'm sorry. I've got an early start tomorrow. Nobody bought it. I didn't expect them to. Leah started to move like she might follow me, but Sam touched her arm, probably thinking he was helping. I didn't look back long enough to see if she shook him off. The restaurant was one of those warm little places on Main Street with brick walls, old black and white pictures, and tables set too close together. Everybody knew everybody, or at least knew somebody who knew them. I had fixed the owner's back deck the summer before, and he lifted a hand at me from near the bar as I passed. I pretended not to see him. Outside, the Tennessee evening had cooled down. The streetlights were on, and the windows along Main were glowing yellow. People were walking out of shops, laughing, holding leftover boxes, talking about normal things. Ball games. Bills. Kids. Work. I stood by my truck for a second with my keys in my hand and felt stupid. 38 years old, grown man, builder of porches and roofs and kitchen additions, and one bad answer at a birthday dinner had knocked the breath out of me. I got in and started the engine. For a few minutes, I just drove. Not toward home. Home was worse. Home was a 2-bedroom house with Claire's coffee mug still on the second shelf of the cabinet, handle facing out like she might come in tomorrow morning and reach for it. Home was the couch where I ate dinner with the television on low. Home was clean, quiet, paid for, and empty in a way that got louder after dark. Claire had been gone 4 years. People stopped saying, "I'm sorry," after the first year. By the second year, they expected me to start making jokes again. By the third, they acted like grief was a room I should have finished painting and moved out of by now. I tried. I worked. I fixed sagging floors. Replaced windows. Patched roofs after spring storms. Built a wheelchair ramp for Mrs. Henley and refused to charge her full price. I kept my invoices straight. Paid my taxes. Showed up on time. Folks in town said I was steady. Steady was just another word for stuck when nobody wanted to say it out loud. Leah was the only one who never treated me like a project she had given up on. After the funeral, she brought groceries even when I said I didn't need them. She made coffee in my kitchen because I forgot how. She sat on my porch and talked about nothing until I could stand the sound of another person's voice again. And when weeks turned into months and everybody else started drifting back to their own lives, she kept showing up. Every Thursday at first. Then whenever. Sometimes she brought soup. Sometimes she brought gossip from the library where she worked. Sometimes she didn't bring anything except herself, and that was worse, because I started needing it. That was the part one had been trying not to look at. Somewhere between her knocking on my door with takeout and her falling asleep on my couch during an old movie, Leah stopped being just the friend who had stayed. She became the person I watched for. The person whose name lighting up my phone made the room feel less flat. And I hated myself a little for that. Not because of Leah. Never because of Leah. Because wanting something new felt like I was turning my back on Claire. Like I was leaving her behind in some place I had promised to stay. I drove past my street. Then past the feed store, past the church with the white steeple, past the dark little softball field where kids had played earlier that evening. I knew where I was going before I let myself say it. The cemetery sat just outside town, behind an iron gate that never locked because around here people figured grief kept its own hours. I stopped at the gas station first and bought a cheap bundle of flowers from the plastic bucket by the door. The cashier, a teenage kid with earbuds in, didn't ask who they were for. I was thankful for that. When I pulled up by the cemetery gate, the gravel popped under my tires. I turned off the engine and sat in the dark with the flowers across my lap. My phone buzzed once in the cup holder. Leah. I didn't look at the message. I could not explain it to her. Not yet. Not with her birthday dinner still warm behind us and my ugly little truth sitting in the middle of that table like spilled coffee. So I got out, took the flowers, and walked through the gate toward the old tree near the back. Claire's stone was right where I had left it. Of course it was. I stood there for a long moment, holding those flowers like a fool, and finally said, "Hey, Claire." My voice sounded rough. I messed up tonight. And that was where I ended up, talking to the only place that never asked me to be fine. I messed up tonight, I said again, because saying it once did not feel like enough. The cemetery was quiet except for bugs in the grass and a truck passing somewhere out on the road. I set the flowers down against Claire's stone and wiped my hand on my jeans, even though there was nothing on it. They had a dinner for Leah, I said. Her birthday. You would have liked the place. Too loud, too crowded, tables too close together. The kind of place you used to say had good bread and bad parking. I let out a small breath that almost turned into a laugh, but it didn't make it all the way. She looked happy, I said. That's the part that got me first. She had this green dress on. Nothing fancy. Just Leah. Everybody was talking over each other, and she kept trying to make sure nobody felt left out. You know how she does. I stood there with my hands in my pockets, looking down at her name. Claire Bennett Walker. I still saw my last name next to hers and felt it hit somewhere low in my chest. She asked me something, I said. A joke. It wasn't meant to hurt. It just landed wrong. I could still hear the table going quiet. I could still see Leah's face when she realized I had not taken it as a joke. She basically asked if I was good at being close to someone, I said. Not in those exact words. But that's what it was. And I should have laughed. You would have kicked me under the table and told me not to make everybody uncomfortable. I rubbed the back of my neck. But I answered like an idiot. I told them I wouldn't know anymore. I said I stopped being good at anything that needed another person. The words sounded worse out here. At the table, they had come out fast. Here, they had weight. I don't know why I said it, I told her. Maybe because it was true. I looked over my shoulder toward the gate. Nobody was there. Just the road, the dark line of trees, and the weak light from the old lamp near the entrance. I still have your mug, I said. The blue one with the chip in the handle. It's still in the cabinet. Same spot. I don't use it. I don't move it. I just keep it there like that proves something. My throat tightened, and I hated that it still happened so easily. I go to work. I come home. I eat whatever I picked up on the way. I sleep. I wake up and do it again. Folks ask how I am, and I say I'm good. I've gotten real good at saying that. I took a slow breath. But Leah knows. Her name sounded different out here. Like I had brought someone living into a place that belonged to the past. She's known for years, I said. She never pushed me. She never made a big speech about healing or moving on or any of that. She just kept showing up. Groceries. Coffee. That terrible soup she made the first winter after you were gone. You remember how bad she was at cooking. I smiled a little despite myself. She's better now. A little. The smile faded. I think about her when she's not around, I said. That was the first sentence that really scared me. I looked down at Claire's stone like it might change if I told the truth too clearly. I wait for her texts. I notice when she's tired. I know how she takes coffee now without asking. I know when she's pretending she's fine because she does this thing with her mouth, like she's holding the words in with her teeth. I shook my head. And tonight, when she asked that question, it wasn't just the question. It was that I wanted to answer a different one. I wanted to tell her I don't know if I remember how to be wanted by somebody. I don't know if I remember how to let somebody stand close. And I'm scared that if I try, it means I'm walking away from you. I was terrified that loving someone new meant betraying the one I lost. Is moving on a sign of healing, or is it just forgetting? Write your thoughts in the comments. The night stayed still. No answer. No sign. Just my own voice and the ground under my boots. I loved you, I said. I still do. That's the hard part. People talk like love ends clean. Like there's a box for then and a box for now. But it doesn't work like that. You're still in the house. Not in some strange way. Just, in the little things. The mug. The towels you picked. The dent in the hallway trim from when I moved that dresser and you laughed at me for acting like I didn't do it. I rubbed my eyes with my thumb and finger. And Leah is in the house too. Her jacket on the chair sometimes. Her books on my table. Her coffee in my sink. Her voice on my porch. I swallowed hard. I don't know what that makes me. A soft sound came from behind me. Not loud. Just gravel shifting under a shoe. I turned fast. Leah stood near the path, a few yards away, one hand wrapped around her phone, the other tucked against her side like she didn't know what to do with it. Her face looked pale in the cemetery light. For a second neither of us moved. Then she said, "I'm sorry." I looked away, then back at her. "How much did you hear?" "Enough," she said. I wanted to be angry. It would have helped. But she looked so sorry and so scared that I could not find it. "You followed me?" "I saw your face when you left," she said. "James, I've known you too long to let you drive off looking like that. It's your birthday." "I know. You should be back at dinner." "I didn't want dinner after you left." That hit harder than it should have. She took one step closer, then stopped near the edge of the grass. "I shouldn't have asked that. It was stupid. I was trying to be funny, and it came out too personal. It wasn't your fault. It was my question. It was my answer." She looked at Claire's stone, then lowered her voice. "I didn't come here to listen. I swear. I got here, and I heard you talking, and I should have backed away. But then you said my name. I nodded once because I did not trust myself to say anything. Leah walked closer and stood beside me, not too close, but close enough that I could feel she was there. For a while, we both looked at the stone. She was kind to me, Leah said. Claire. Not everybody was, when I first moved here. She was. She liked you. I liked her too. That helped more than I expected. Not fixed. Just helped. Leah turned toward me. Your answer at dinner scared me. I gave a dry little laugh. Scared everybody, I think. No, she said. Not like that. It sounded like someone who forgot he was still allowed to be alive. I looked at her then. Her eyes were wet, but she was holding herself steady. I don't know what I'm allowed to be, I said. You don't have to know tonight. I nodded, but I could feel the truth between us now. It was standing right there, and neither of us could pretend it was only friendship anymore. Leah looked down at her phone. Her thumb moved over the screen, then stopped. There's something I need to show you, she said. What? She hesitated. A message I wrote months ago. To me? She nodded. My chest tightened. She unlocked her phone and opened a note, not a text. Then she held it out, but did not let go of it. I read the first few lines. James, I don't know how to say this without making everything harder for you. I love you. Not because I'm trying to fill the empty place in your life. Not because I think you need fixing. I just do. I have for longer than I want to admit. I stopped reading. Leah pulled the phone back like she was afraid she had already shown too much. I never sent it, she said quickly. I wasn't trying to pressure you. I knew you were still carrying so much, and I didn't want to become one more thing you had to manage. So I wrote it, and I kept it, and I told myself that was enough. I stared at her. I was stunned, but not the way a man is stunned by something impossible. More like the way you feel when you finally find the tool you had been looking for and realize it had been on the workbench the whole time. You love me? I asked. Her mouth trembled once, but her voice stayed clear. Yes. I looked back at Claire Stone, then at Leah. I don't know how to do this. I don't either. I'm scared. So am I. That should have made it worse. Somehow it didn't. I opened my mouth to answer her. I do not know what I would have said. Maybe something careful. Maybe something honest. Maybe her name. But before I could get a word out, headlights swept across the cemetery gate. Leah's whole body changed. She turned toward the road, and the color drained from her face. A dark car stopped outside the gate. The engine stayed running for a second, then shut off. The driver's door opened. Leah? I asked. She did not answer right away. A man stepped through the gate, neat shirt, polished shoes, phone in his hand like he had been calling all night. Leah whispered, Derek. And just like that, the quiet broke. Derek walked through the gate like he had every right to be there. He did not rush. That was the first thing I noticed. He moved calm and clean, the way some men do when they think the room already belongs to them. Even in the cemetery dirt, his shoes looked polished. His shirt was tucked in. His hair was neat. One hand held his phone, screen still lit from whatever call Leah had not picked up. Leah, he said. She did not answer. I stood beside her, not in front of her. I had no right to step between her and a conversation she had not asked me to take over. But I stayed close enough that she would not feel like she was facing him alone. Derek's eyes moved from Leah to me, then back to her. So this is where you went, he said. I've been calling. I know, Leah said. You know. Yes. His jaw tightened, but he gave a small smile like he was trying to keep things smooth. Then why didn't you answer? Because I didn't want to talk to you. The words came out quiet, but they were solid. Derek looked almost amused. At a cemetery? In the middle of the night? With him? He said, him, like I was a busted ladder somebody had left in the yard. Leah folded her arms. You need to leave. I drove 40 minutes because you wouldn't answer your phone. I didn't ask you to drive anywhere. He let out a breath and glanced at me again. Can we speak privately? No. Leah. No, she repeated, louder this time. I could see her hands shaking a little where they tucked against her elbows. Derek saw it too, and I could tell he knew that shake. Not in a kind way. In the way a man knows which board creaks because he has stepped on it before. He softened his voice. I'm worried about you. She laughed once, but there was no humor in it. That's what you're going with? It's the truth. You've been acting strange for months. Pulling away from people. Making choices that don't sound like you. They sound like me. You just don't like them. Derek's smile slipped. I don't think standing out here with your contractor friend after a birthday dinner is exactly healthy. There it was. The little cut. Clean enough to pretend it was not a cut. I looked at him and said nothing. Leah turned her head slightly toward me, like she was checking whether I had taken the bait. When I didn't, something in her shoulders eased. He has a name, she said. It's James. I know his name. Then use it. Derek looked at me again. Fine. James. I'm sure you mean well. But this is between Leah and me. No, Leah said. It isn't. He blinked like she had slapped his hand away from something. We ended months ago, she said. You don't get to keep reopening it because silence makes you uncomfortable. I'm not reopening anything. I'm trying to understand how you went from talking about a future with me to shutting me out. I told you why. You gave me a few emotional reasons during a bad week. They were not emotional reasons. They were reasons. He stepped closer, still careful, still polished. You were overwhelmed. You had things going on with your family, with work, with everything. I gave you space. You gave me arguments, she said. Every time I told you how I felt, you explained why I was wrong to feel it. His face hardened. That is not fair. It is true. No, it's not, he said, and for the first time his voice lost that smooth edge. I listened to you constantly. You waited for your turn to talk. The words sat there between them. Derek looked away, then back. I loved you. Leah nodded once. I think you loved having me. That's cruel. No, she said. Cruel was making me doubt myself every time I tried to be honest. Cruel was calling it care when you checked where I was. Cruel was acting like persistence meant romance, even after I said I needed distance. His eyes narrowed. Did he tell you to say that? I felt Leah stiffen beside me. Derek pointed the phone slightly in my direction. Because this is convenient, isn't it? He's lonely, you're soft-hearted, and suddenly he's the one standing next to you at midnight while you rewrite our whole relationship. My hands curled once at my sides, then I forced them loose. Leah turned fully toward him. Do not put this on him. I'm asking a reasonable question. No. You're doing what you always do. You're trying to make my feelings look like somebody else planted them. Derek took another step. Because this does not make sense. It makes sense to me. That's not enough. It is now. For a second, nobody moved. The lamp near the gate buzzed faintly. Somewhere behind us, leaves shifted in the old tree over Claire's grave. I could hear Leah breathing through her nose, slow and controlled, like she was holding a door shut with both hands. Derek lowered his voice again. Come talk to me by the car. No. 5 minutes. No. Leah, stop making a scene. She looked around at the empty cemetery. There's no scene. There's just you not getting what you want. That was when his calm broke. He reached for her wrist. Not hard enough to yank her, not dramatic enough that he could not explain it away later. Just a quick grip, like he still believed he could move her where he wanted and call it concern. I stepped in and put my hand on his forearm. "Let go," I said. My voice came out lower than I expected. Derek looked at my hand like it was dirt on his sleeve. "Back off. Let go of her." Leah pulled her arm free before either of us moved again. Then she stepped back and held up her phone. "If you touch me or him again, I'm calling for help," she said. "I mean it." Derek stared at her. That was the first moment he looked unsure. Not beaten. Not scared. Just thrown off, like the steps he knew by heart had suddenly changed under his feet. "Leah," he said, but her name sounded different now. "No," she said. "You came here because I ignored you. You thought if you showed up in person, I'd feel bad enough to listen. Then you'd talk long enough to make me tired. Then I'd start wondering if maybe I was too harsh, too confused, too emotional, too unfair." Her voice shook at the end, but she did not stop. "I am done doing that." Derek looked down at the gravel. For a few seconds he said nothing. The whole cemetery felt like it was waiting with us. Then he gave a short, bitter nod. "So that's it?" "Yes. You're choosing this?" He glanced at me. "Him." Leah's face changed then. Not softer. Clearer. "I'm choosing myself," she said. "And I'm not coming back." Derek swallowed. His mouth opened like he had one more argument ready, but no words came out. Maybe he finally understood there was nowhere for them to land. He looked at me once, and there was anger there, but also something tired underneath it. Then he turned. His shoes scraped the gravel as he walked back toward the gate. He did not slam anything. He did not shout. He just got in his car, sat there a moment with both hands on the wheel, then started the engine. The headlights swept across us as he backed out. Leah did not move until the red taillights disappeared down the road. Then her phone lowered to her side, and she let out a breath so deep it sounded like it had been trapped in her for years. Leah's phone dropped to her side, and for a few seconds she just stood there, staring at the empty road beyond the gate. I did not touch her right away. After what had just happened, it felt important to let her have her own space. Her own breath. Her own choice about what came next. Finally, she turned toward me. "Did he hurt you?" she asked. I looked down at my hand, then at my arm. "No. James." "I'm fine," I said, then caught myself. Her eyebrows lifted a little. I let out a tired breath. "I mean it this time. I'm fine." She stepped closer and took my wrist anyway, turning my hand over like she expected to find something broken. Her fingers were cold. Mine were probably worse. "He didn't get me," I said. "I know. I just needed to check." That small thing nearly undid me more than Derek had. Not the argument. Not the headlights. Not the way Derek had looked at me like I was some temporary problem. Leah standing in the dark, checking my hand like I mattered. She let go, but not all the way. Her fingers stayed near mine. "I'm sorry," she said. "You don't have to apologize for him." "I'm not." She looked back toward the road. "I'm apologizing because you were standing at Claire's grave trying to tell the truth, and then my past came walking through the gate." "It was already part of tonight," I said. She gave me a tired look. "That sounds like something people say when they don't know what else to say." "Pretty much." That made her smile a little. Not much, but enough. The cemetery had gone quiet again. The kind of quiet that comes after raised voices, when everything ordinary starts coming back. Crickets. Wind in the leaves. A dog barking somewhere far off. My truck cooling by the fence with little ticks from the engine. Leah turned toward Claire's stone. "I meant what I showed you," she said. I followed her eyes to the name carved there. I didn't think it was just because of tonight, I said. I need you to know that. That message wasn't some reaction to Derek or the dinner or you leaving. I wrote it because I had been carrying it too long. I know. She looked at me. Do you? I nodded, but it took me a second to find the words. I think I knew before you showed me, I said. Not all the way. Not enough to say it. But I knew something was there. I just kept acting like if I didn't name it, I didn't have to choose what to do with it. Leah looked down at the grass. I've been careful for so long, I said. That's what I called it, anyway. Being careful. With Claire's memory. With you. With the friendship. With everything. And was it? Some of it. I rubbed my hand over my face. Mostly I was scared. She did not push. She just waited. I was scared that wanting you meant I was leaving Claire behind, I said. Scared that if I let myself have something good, people would think I had gotten over her. Scared that if I told you the truth, I'd lose the one person who kept showing up when I could barely stand myself. Leah's eyes softened. You didn't fix me, I said. I don't want you thinking that's what this is. You didn't come in and patch a hole and make me whole again. I never thought that. I know. But I need to say it. I looked at her fully. You just kept showing up. And after a while, I started remembering there was still somebody in me worth showing up for. Her mouth trembled, and this time she did not hide it. I'm scared too, she said. I nodded. Because of Derek? Partly. She wrapped her arms around herself. He made me doubt my own feelings for a long time. Not all at once. Just little by little. I'd say something hurt me, and by the end of the conversation I'd be apologizing for bringing it up. So now I second-guess myself. Even when I know what I feel. You stood pretty strong tonight. I was shaking the whole time. Standing still while shaking still counts. She breathed out a quiet laugh. Then she looked at me in a way that made my chest ache. I don't want to mistake relief for love. I nodded slowly. That was honest. Hard to hear, but honest. Then we won't rush it, I said. You don't have to say that just to be noble. I'm not noble. I'm tired. And I don't want to ruin the only honest thing I've had in years by trying to force it into a shape tonight. She studied my face. So what are we doing? She asked. I looked at Claire's grave. For 4 years, I had treated that spot like a locked door. Like the only way to prove I loved my wife was to keep part of myself closed off forever. I thought staying frozen was loyalty. I thought loneliness was some kind of payment I owed. But standing there with Leah beside me, I understood something simple. Claire had loved me when I was alive. Not half alive. Not going through motions. Not eating dinner over the sink because sitting at the table felt wrong. She had loved the man who laughed too loud, worked too late, burned toast, forgot grocery lists, and sang badly when he thought nobody could hear him. Staying empty was not honoring her. It was just staying empty. I think, I said slowly, we stop pretending we're only friends. Leah's eyes held mine. And then? And then we go slow. We tell the truth. We don't make promises we can't understand yet. She moved her hand closer until her fingers touched mine. That sounds terrifying, she said. Yeah. And good. Yeah, I said. That too. She took my hand. It was not dramatic. No music. No big speech. Just her cold fingers sliding between mine in the cemetery grass while Claire's name sat in front of us, steady and quiet. I looked down at the stone one more time. I'm not leaving you, I said softly. Leah did not answer for Claire. She did not squeeze my hand like she owned that moment. She just stood with me until I was ready to turn away. Then we walked back through the gate together. At my house, neither of us wanted to go inside right away. So I made coffee, and we carried the mugs out to the porch with 2 old blankets from the hall closet. The night had cooled enough that Leah tucked her feet under her and wrapped the blanket up to her chin. "You still make coffee too strong," she said. "You still drink it." "I'm loyal." "I know." She looked at me over the rim of her mug, and this time the silence between us was different. It was not hiding anything. It was just resting. We talked until late. Not about forever. Not about what people would say. We talked about the dinner, about Sam trying not to stare, about how Morgan would probably call first thing in the morning pretending she only wanted to ask if Leah got home safe. At some point, Leah leaned her shoulder against mine. I did not move away. A few days later, I found myself standing in front of the kitchen cabinet before sunrise. Claire's blue mug was still on the second shelf, handle turned out. I took it down. For a moment, I just held it. Then I washed it, dried it, and put it back with the others. Not hidden. Not set apart. Just there. Behind me, Leah moved around my kitchen like she had been doing it for years, because in a way, she had. She knew where I kept the filters. She knew which drawer stuck. She knew I always forgot to buy sugar until she opened the empty jar inside. "Coffee's almost ready," she said. I turned and watched her reach for 2 mugs. She already knew where everything was. And for the first time